Hello and welcome to a quick Gradecam tutorial on not necessarily how to get your standards into Gradecam, because we will talk about that later, but how to link them. So you'll want to watch this video once you know that the standards for your course are in Gradecam 1, and 2, that they look the way you want them to look. Just a quick note is that you got to make sure it's absolutely necessary that your questions in your formative and summative assessments in Gradecam are linked to standards. Otherwise, they're not informing you about student growth. So a quick note about the standards: if you don't like the way they look or they aren't even there, you need to fill out this form, and this presentation will be on this site right next to this little window that you're looking at, and it's also available via email. And then also at that link here that I've listed for you, that shortened Google link. You'll want to have a uniform naming convention for your standards that your team is aware of or has agreed upon, just so that they know what those standards are. So maybe on your assessment you have 3.2a, whatever that looks like for you, Roman numeral 3.2a, but you have that list that shows you, okay, what is 3.2a? So that you can link that in Gradecam. Gradecam will show you that name as well as the standard itself. So if you're not sure that your standards are in there, we will find out today when you go through this tutorial. So a quick demonstration, you'll want to go onto Gradecam, obviously, and you'll want to click on the assignment. So go to the assignment and be on the key. So not in the scans, you'll want to be in the key. So when you're looking at the key, which you can kind of see behind the arrow here, you've got your answers, and there's little check boxes next to each number. You need to know ahead of time. It'll be helpful to know ahead of time if there's multiple questions that apply to the same standard. I know that on some assessments and some courses that they have like the first 3 questions, every 3 questions changes a standard, something like that. So that would make it pretty quick and easy for you. So select the check boxes next to the questions that applies to any one standard, the same standard. So you'll select those over here. And then you'll see, this is a newer update in Gradecam, is that there's a pop-up window, and it shows you which questions you have selected. You could select 1, you could select all of them, you could select 15 of them, whatever. You can change the point value there if you want it to be worth 2 points, 3 points, 1 point, half a point. You can also change the type of the question. In this field, you can't see that it's towards the top. But what you're going to do is scroll down in the pop-up box to add standard, and you'll do just that. So you'll click on add standard, and you will see a searchability for your standards. You'll probably have to select your course, and then you'll see your standards. Here's my suggestion, well, here it is. Use that search. That is new this year in Gradecam, to search for your standards, and let me tell you how much of a pain in the rear it is to have to scroll through hundreds of standards to find the exact one that number 4 applies to, and then do that with all 40 questions on your test, or however many you have. But that's also another reason why the naming format or naming convention that your team comes up with is so important. So that obviously you're all on the same page there, but so that you know, okay, number 4 is for 3.2a, I can just search Roman numeral 3.2a and it'll pop up. So again, if the standards aren't there, make sure that you've kind of looked around, or that they don't look like what you want them to look like. Say let's say they're too broad, like they're these huge overarching objectives, and you have one objective for your entire unit test. Well, that's not good. You want to put in your I can statements. So go ahead and fill out that form and let us know that, and we'll have more information soon. Okay, so that's really it as far as linking standards. It's pretty simple as long as you have them in there the way that you want them to look. So I'm going to take a quick minute, and I might be repeating off of another one of our trainings and tutorials, but I'm going to take a quick minute to say, okay, how do we look at these standards after we've given the assessment to our students? So what you want to do is go to the assessment that you have scans for, that you're wanting to see growth or the standards. So for instance, one of my courses from last year, I selected this assessment in Gradecam. Okay, so that'll pop up in the top left of your screen. it automatically shows up onto scans. You'll want to select reports. Now, under reports over on the left-hand side, you'll have, obviously, reports. All of these options, there's a ton of options there, but there's quite a few actually, some options on accessing reports by standard for specific assignments. So when I drill into, or when I go into this one assignment, I'm only looking at the standards on that one assignment. So what you can do is actually look at any of these 4 categories, which are over here. So students, classes, and teachers. Each time you select one of those, you'll click the little down arrow. It then has an option of by standard. So if you want to look at students by standard to see what their percentages are, you can do that. Or by class, and you can even see the lowest standards by class. And then you can also look and collaborate with other teachers on what their scores are, or what their standard mastery is. And then there's also the standards, and that one's pretty self-explanatory. What I've selected here is under that same assessment from up here. What I've done is selected underneath students by standard, and it even tells you up here where you are. So I'm looking at student by standard, and this is what it shows me. I feel like this is really cool information. So I know that Kimberly here didn't do well on 4.4 and did even worse on 4.5. Okay, so this shows me individual students' mastery of standards on this individual assessment. Okay, now you can set these colors. I have these colors already set. So you can set these colors under settings. So up in the top right hand corner of your Gradecam screen, you'll see your last name with a down arrow. Click that, select settings, and then performance bands. And that's where you can select, you can make them purple or blue if you want to. And you can select the colors and percentage breakoffs. Okay, so how do we look at growth? So I know that my students took AP Psychology Unit 4 test. Well, we've got the midterm quarter exam coming up, or, you know, we just took it, let's say, and I want to see how they did on specific standards from Unit 4. I mean, that's reassessment, right? That's the reassessment piece of that circle that we're talking about. So let's talk quickly about reports to see growth. From the main page, so go up to the left top corner and click the Gradecam G. That takes you back to your main page. You don't want to be in any specific assignment. You're going to select not assignments and not classes, but reports. Click the check boxes next to the assignments that include the standards you would like to see growth on. So I know they took the Unit 4 test. I reassessed almost all of the Unit 4 standards on the midterm exam, and I want to see those standards specifically. Once you have selected those check boxes, you're going to click Drill Into, which is here. So I want to drill into the data, essentially, of those 2 assessments. And then I'm going to click on Views. Okay, so I click Drill Into and then Views. Views is kind of like the filters, essentially. You'll see that there's some subcategories under that drop-down menu. The first one is Assignments, and underneath that you'll see By Standard. So what this shows me is, here's my Unit 4 test. I know that I gave that first. We generally give that in like October, I guess. And then the midterm exam, which is a little after the Unit 4 test. Now, I see that it's reporting on all standards, but I see that in Unit 4, these standards were not there. So I want to look here. Please note that there's these arrows, this one and this one. I'm all the way to the right here, to get through all of your standards, because you probably have tons of them on your test. So I can see, oh wow, my students did really poorly on, or, you know, not so hot on these standards, 4.6 and 7, but look at the growth they had, really on each of them, but I mean, we're even in the green on 4.7. That's great information to have. However, that is only by whole class, or all of your sections of the one class in that one assessment. So you have another option under Views. Instead of the first subcategory under Assignments, you want to go under Students by Standard. And that's where it gives you the nitty-gritty on each one of your students. Again, the same applies with the arrows to scroll through your students there. And it gives you these pretty color-coded percentages. And again, those are set under settings and performance bands. Quick note about these. These percentages that show up for multiple assignments are means, not growth. That's kind of tricky, right? Like, it's still useful information, but it doesn't necessarily show me where, for instance, Brody started and where he is now. It just shows me his average that he did on 4.3. Okay? See, like on 4.4, let's say, 89%. Well, he could have had 53% last time and got, way above 89%, obviously. That doesn't necessarily, it doesn't show me his growth, but it shows me where he is at right now. Another note about these is that not all standards were assessed on these particular assignments, but it shows all of them. So you have to know which standards were assessed on Unit 4. Well, I know that my Unit 4 standards are Roman numeral 4 point whatever, so I just scrolled over to look at just those. If you want to see growth, you're going to need to look at the assignments separately. So if we go back, reports by assignment, this is what we talked about here. I'm going to look at Unit 4. I'm going to look at this screen here for only the Unit 4 test, and then I'm going to go and look at the same screen for the next assessment that I'm wanting to see that growth on. Okay, so that's standards in a nutshell. There's going to be some more information available in the data analysis tutorial, which is also linked on this page. If you're not on this page already, here is a link to it. I highly recommend that you bookmark it because there's lots of Gradecam help and resources there. And please always shoot me an email, text me, stop by, whatever, if you have any questions. Have a good one.